Welcome to Star Expose. If you love celebrity news and real entertainment updates, you're in the right place. Mark Consuelos had always been more than just an actor, more than just Kelly Ripa's husband. But when he officially took the co-host seat beside her on Live, no one, least of all him, could have predicted how much his life would change. When he first began filling in for Ryan Seacrest, everything felt light, temporary, like borrowing someone else's shoes for a few steps before handing them back. But then came that call, the offer to make it official, a permanent seat, a daily dance in front of millions, and beside his wife, no less. Mark accepted, with love, excitement, and, let's be honest, a dash of panic. He quickly learned that live television wasn't just about charming smiles or witty banter. It was about rhythm, timing, reading the room, the teleprompter, the guest, and, most importantly, reading Kelly. She had been doing this for more than 2 decades. She was a master at balancing the absurd with the heartfelt, the spontaneous with the polished. Mark was still learning where to place his hands, when to jump in and when to just nod and smile. He joked once that his secret weapon was the audience applause. Every time he stumbled, he'd just wait for that familiar cheer to cover his tracks. It's like magic, he laughed. Mess up, wait, boom, they clap. Suddenly, I'm a genius again. That was Mark, always self-deprecating, always warm. But beneath the laughter was something much deeper. Humility. He knew what it meant to stand beside a woman who had mastered the art of live TV, and instead of competing, he chose to compliment her. Kelly, for her part, adored it. Sure, there were moments where she'd roll her eyes playfully, nudging him mid-interview, whispering, "Honey, they're supposed to ask them a question now." And he'd grin that boyish grin that melted tension instantly. That was their magic. What viewers saw on screen wasn't a polished act. It was real marriage. The teasing, the teamwork, the subtle glances that said, "I've got you." And that realness made people fall in love with them all over again. But behind the laughter, a quieter, more personal story began to unfold. For years, Kelly and Mark had been the embodiment of strength and joy. Their relationship survived Hollywood chaos, public scrutiny, and the constant pressure of living life in the spotlight. Yet nothing could have prepared them for the heartbreak that came next. Not long after celebrating his first year as Kelly's official co-host, news began to circulate that would shake their world. Mark Consuelos had been diagnosed with cancer. At first, the couple kept it private. They smiled for the cameras, carried on with their show, and leaned on humor the way they always did. But in the quiet moments, behind the lights, behind the laughter, there were tears, fear, late-night talks that drifted between hope and exhaustion. When Kelly finally opened up about it, her voice trembled. She spoke about how fragile life can feel, how even the strongest love can be tested by something invisible, cruel, and unfair. She said you think you're ready for anything until you're not. For someone who had spent more than 2 decades making America laugh, that moment of raw vulnerability touched people deeply. Fans who had watched them grow together, on-screen and off, now saw them not as television icons, but as human beings, navigating something heartbreakingly real. Kelly, ever the optimist, refused to let despair take over. She leaned on her faith, her humor, and her family, and she leaned hardest on Mark, who, despite the diagnosis, never lost his spark. He joked with the doctors, he made nurses laugh. He'd wink at Kelly during treatments and whisper, "Guess you're stuck with me a little longer." That was Mark's spirit. Unbreakable, mischievous, full of light even in the darkest rooms. Fans flooded social media with messages of love and encouragement. Letters poured in, flowers, prayers, and stories of survival from people who had faced their own battles. Suddenly, the couple's private struggle became something larger, a reminder that behind every polished smile, there's a story. And sometimes the strongest people are those who keep smiling through the storm. Through it all, Kelly and Mark continued to show up, day after day. Some mornings, Kelly's eyes would glisten a little bit more than usual. Some mornings, Mark's laughter came a little slower. But together, they carried
more
each
than
other.
entertainment.
It became therapy, not just for them, but for millions of viewers who saw in their resilience a reflection of their own. There were still the jokes, of course. Kelly teasing Mark about forgetting his cue cards, Mark pretending to be jealous when Kelly flirted with the guest. The laughter never left. It simply became softer, more meaningful. Each laugh was a small victory, a reminder that life, even when uncertain, is still beautiful. One day, after a particularly emotional episode, Kelly turned to Mark and said something that viewers didn't catch on camera. "You know," she whispered, "even if you mess up every line tomorrow, you're still my favorite co-host." And he smiled, because that's all he ever wanted to be. Not perfect, not flawless, just hers. Their journey, with all their laughter, missteps, tears, and courage, became a story of partnership in its purest form. It showed that love isn't about the easy days. It's about who holds your hand when the cameras stop rolling, who stands by you when the applause fades. As the months went on, Mark's treatment continued. Some days were harder than others, but every time he walked onto that stage with Kelly by his side, the audience could feel it. An unspoken strength, a quiet promise that no matter what happens, they'll face it together. The couple never pretended to have it all figured out. They just showed up, imperfect, honest, and full of heart. And maybe that's what makes their story so unforgettable. Mark once said, "It's funny, I used to think live TV was terrifying, but then life happens and you realize the real show starts when the cameras go off." Kelly laughed, squeezing his hand. "Well, good thing we're still in reruns." Through their laughter, their tears, and their courage, they've given the world something that feels rare these days: authentic love. The kind that grows deeper with every challenge. The kind that finds joy even in the shadows. And as they continue this new chapter, one filled with healing, hope, and humor, they remind us all of something simple yet profound: that love, when it's real, can survive anything. So here's to Mark and Kelly, two people who turned life's toughest script into something extraordinary, not through perfection, but through presence, not through fame, but through faith, and not by hiding their pain, but by facing it, hand in hand, with a smile and the courage to keep going, because in the end, that's what love really looks like. Thanks for watching Star Expose. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next big story.